Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is 4 minutes after 12. Excuse me for a few minutes late already than we've planned. My name is Mira, and I will be hosting you for today keynotes. We will meet with Professor Franzisca Weder from Australia. And there you are. Hello, friend.
Hi. How are you? Good to see you.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm so excited because before we start, I would like to say that the first time I come encounter with the issue of climate change is during this conference in 2007. 14 years ago, I watched this movie from Al Gore here at ISWI. Yeah, and it was so great to have this topic as a huge topic here at ISWI. So, how are you, friend? Australia, okay?
I'm pretty well. Australia is great, and it's basically dark outside, so everyone can see it's already nighttime here, it's great. I think the topic that you mentioned from Al Gore, the inconvenient truth, is still pretty prevalent because it is an inconvenient truth, and especially like at the time we arrived in Australia at the end of 2019, we've been confronted with the bushfires and then the big pandemic. So it's still a pretty inconvenient truth. I'm very happy to talk about that a bit more.
Well, and I'm so happy that you're here with us. And of course, everybody, for those who don't know, Franzisca Weder is a professor of communication. Now it's in Australia. I know you since you are in Austria, actually. And then actually today you are officially a chair of Environmental Communication Association. So International Environmental Communication Association, right? Exactly today. But before we begin, I would like to try something because for those of you, all participants at home and all viewers at home, during this presentation from Professor Weder, we will try to connect with Mentimentor, so you could check, you could give some answers, so we know your we will ask you a question and you could answer through Mentimentor. But before that, let's warm up first before we start the speech. I would like to know who are there. Actually, I would like to try this. I would like to wait. I would like to share you. Let's see if it's okay. Oh. So I would like to share. I would like to try first. If you could see us.
Here we go. That looks great.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, I'm not I'm not what is that here technology savvy, but friend, you have to tell me if you are there.
Yes, I can see
you. So for those of you at home, try to go to www.menti.com and type the code 3209 on your smartphone. Grab that one and use the code that you see here, 6332, and then let us know where you are. I will wait.
I'm really curious. And it will appear on this beautiful, yay!
Yeah, where is it? That is in Europe, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Someone also somewhere else outside Germany? Okay. Wow. 3 people in Europe? Okay.
Yay, here we go.
And somewhere else, is there someone in Africa? Is there someone in Asia? Okay, I could see that. Somewhere in France. Is there somewhere else in Indonesia maybe, or other one in Australia, in the US? Okay. Indonesia there. Okay. Europe. And okay. Other maybe? So it will be great if we could see you, because later on we will use again the same way, where you could go to menti.com and answer some questions that we posted here. Okay, so there will be some question where we could interact with you. Somewhere in the Pacific there. So, okay, we will just, is it okay that if we just wait a few seconds more? I'm sure there are more than 16 people there. Oh, in Africa.
Yay!
Great.
Here we go.
Great.
Oh gosh, he's right here in the middle of the ocean. That's awesome.
I don't know.
What is it?
Oh, maybe someone who is in the middle of the ocean. You have to send us a message later so that we could know who you are.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, friend, because it is great that this ISWI event, while we are waiting for the other, this year is really incredible, isn't it? So everything goes online.
I know, it's weird.
But it also challenging. Yeah, it's challenging, but also make things possible, right? I think it will not be good for the environment if you travel to Germany at this moment, for example, isn't it?
But I would love to.
I know. But yeah, but maybe if it isn't for the pandemic, we will not be able to reach out. I mean, maybe this whole recording things and you put it on YouTube will not be happening like today. I mean, people could also still watch this presentation afterwards. So I think now we know that there's people everywhere who are with us. So later on, I will show you again some question. I mean, Professor Weder will show you the question, and you could answer exactly the same way, like you do right now. Go to menti.com with your cell phone, and then you could participate in answering some question. It will be great. It will be 1.5 great hours. Right, so I will end it now, and we will start with the presentation, right? So now I will go back first to a screen here. And I would like to share your presentation. Yeah. So, great.
Here we go.
Yeah, just tell me what to do, and I will help you with that.
It's all good. Honestly, I think it's awesome to do this with you, Mira, because I'm here not only as like this weird German person who lived in Austria for quite a while and is now in Australia, but I'm here together with Mira to talk a bit about environmental communication, to talk a bit about sustainability, and to present and represent a bit of the International Environmental Communication Association. And you can see it already in the presentation on the top right corner. It's the IECA, and it's a beautiful kind of network of people who are dealing with environmental communication. And the beauty of this organization is, as you like look at Mira and me, it is really international, and it is not only an association for like academics, it's for practitioners, it's for students, it's for everyone who's interested in environmental communication. And today I will talk a bit about environmental communication for those of you who maybe know a lot about the environment, who know a lot about environmental management or whatever is connected to that, but probably not too much about communication and why communication really matters in these times in particular. So if you just get started in like environmental communication is something that is all over the place, it is around us, and what you just did was kind of part of it, because you use your phone, you kind of get all these algorithm driven information on Facebook, on Instagram, on all your social media channels, but by the same time you watch the news, you listen to the radio, and you get a lot of information about what is happening out there, what is happening in the social world, but what is happening with nature. You will hear about bushfires, you will hear about the pandemic a lot at the moment, but by the same time you hear a lot about Greta Thunberg and David Attenborough, and you can see all those faces talking about a changing climate. And it's not only the stuff that is in the media. You know that Fridays for Future, you know about all those young people, and you're hopefully part of it, going out there and saying, hey, honestly, it's not a changing climate anymore. It's a climate crisis. So there is a lot of life communication, not only like activists and not only like very spiritual people hugging trees and being out there in the forest, but there's more. There's a lot of communication around which is about the environment, about nature, about climate change, about global warming, and all the related issues. And recently, there's a lot of communication out there on sustainability, which is a bit of the kind of new narrative out there that came along to meet all those climate change related problems. So what we want to do today is to introduce a communication perspective on everything that's happening there. So as communication scholars or communication scientists, or however you might call us as academics in this field, we do think a lot about the communication and how the environment, how all these like climate change related problems and challenges and how sustainability is communicated. And to explain this a bit better, if you like switch to the next slide, is that we really want to focus on communication and everything that is kind of out there that we call a bit of like the climate bubble or the sustainable bubble, like all those things, all those issues, all those topics that are out there. Because it's said, and if you switch the slide again, please, it's all about communication. And as said before, as communication scholars, we do have a pretty good way to look at these different forms of communication from different perspectives. And we want to take you along this way, exactly, and we rely on good old Mr. Leswell. So he is probably not the most famous communication theorist or communication person. However, he offered us a very good way to understand what communication is. He said basically communication is about a sender, a person, an organization, or a political institution who says something, who says what to someone, to another person, to a receiver of the communication. And as communication people and academics and scholars, we look at these different dimensions. We ask, questions. We ask, who's communicating about the environment? We ask, what is said about the environment, about nature, about sustainability and climate change? And we are interested in the audiences. We are interested in to whom do we communicate? Who are the target audience of all this communication that is out there? And then, of course, we're interested in like which channel, which medium do you use to receive all this information? What are the most prominent channels that are used for environmental communication? And what is then happening in your mind? What is happening with the target audiences? Can people actually be motivated to do better, to consume more sustainable, to meet those challenges of climate change? So all these questions are interesting from our communication perspective. And so therefore, we would like to offer you this understanding of, so if you want to switch again to this kind of a bit of a graph, this kind of should help you to better understand those dimensions of communication. Because communication, of course, is something you can always say, like, communication is when I talk, and oh yeah, communication is if someone talks to me. So, but it's more complex. It's really about this kind of center of communication, the receiver of communication, and everything that's happening between the content, all the topics, issues, and everything that is problematized. And then the big question of like, where and which channel do we communicate and what is happening with that? So we will look at these dimensions. And the first question is, who's actually talking about the changing climate? Who's talking about sustainability and all these environmental issues? And basically, whom are you listening to? Whom are you following on social media? And these two questions are now, again, something we want to kind of play around a bit with you guys. So if you go back to menti.com, and then Mira will provide you with another code.
Yeah.
And if you go to the first question, you will then get to the second question. And we will try to find out whom you are interested in and whom you're following.
Yeah. Let's see. Like I said, I really have to taking careful that I'm not clicking the wrong button. So, are you looking at already our Menti-Mentor?
Mm-hmm.
No, not yet. Okay, then I have to go back. So, for those of you who are still home, okay, I will try again.
And you can put, like, if you have the code, Mira, you can put it in the chat, maybe if you want to.
Okay.
And then everyone can go in.
Yeah, I will try to put the code first. Yeah, that is a very good idea.
And then everyone can start answering the question, and then Mira can share the screen with the overview of the answers. Excellent. So if you have a look in the chat.
Yeah, I already put it there.
Here you go.
Yeah, here you go. And I will try to share my screen again. No, it is not that one. Could you see it now?
Mm-mm.
No, not yet. Oh. Not yet. I will try again. I will try again. So for those of you who are there, you could start just to answer that. In the meantime, I will try my best to okay. Because there are already answers here. And I will try it now. Ooh. You're not seeing it yet, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Now, you see it?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
so it's coming. So I think it's because I open up several accounts at the same time. That's why.
Mm. Here we go. Look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, great.
Keep on doing that, guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really, really great.
Okay. WWF. I see here Greta Thunberg is like one of the most. I mean, the idea is that the more you type a person name or an organization, then we will have this beautiful word cloud. Okay. So
do you have to refresh it, Mira?
Wait, I will try again. Oh, now it's politicians.
Ooh.
Okay, there are 80 people participating.
That's awesome.
NGOs, activists. There is no academy in here, right?
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe one last refreshing and then we can go to the next.
Yeah.
Because stay on Mentimeter, please.
Yeah, there will be the next questions where you could use the same what is that? The same code, I think. I will check. So now you could, in social media, whom you're following. Use the same code.
I think you have to go one step further on this gray thingy down there, Mira.
I think I'm not so good with this one.
That's all good. That's all good.
Okay. Okay, I think
first question.
Yeah, I think the second question, not yet. Okay, maybe we could. I will try to fix my Mentimeter here, and then in the meantime, you could continue with the presentation, and I will prepare the next questions. Is that okay?
Excellent. Perfect.
Great.
No worries. Could you share? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent. So here we go. Great. So I think you had a pretty good idea of like who is talking about the climate, and you already mentioned that there are a lot of politicians, there are a lot of journalists, there are probably a lot of corporates and their marketing agencies that are talking about the environment, they're talking about climate change. But of course, there are new emerging communicators, and a lot of you mentioned Greta Thunberg, which is important. But then I was pretty impressed that you mentioned scientists, for example. And yes, I know this changed massively during the pandemic, because before that, like no scientists, I think it's just a very small portion of scientists who were that were actually really to hear and that were present in the media. And now every country had their virologists and their people and their scientists coming along and talking to the people, and we trusted them. So science communication really increased massively during the pandemic. So I think the most important thing to say when we look at this first dimension of the communication process, this first perspective on who is communicating, the most important thing is that I want to say is that it's not longer like just politicians and just like the journalists. I think there are like many more and many different voices that we can hear in the public sphere talking about the climate, talking about bringing in their narratives and their arguments on climate change, on different environmental issues. And there are new emerging communicators like activists, like scientists, and of course think of all the bloggers and influencers and all these people. So that is really, really interesting to get a better understanding of who is communicating and who are the voices that are pretty loud and pretty good to hear, and who are the voices that we can't hear that loud at the moment. So if we continue in this communication process, so Mira, if you could keep on going through the presentation, that would be awesome. So if we can kind of continue and look at yourself, think about how many stuff you share, how many comments you make on Facebook, on Twitter, or whatever kind of social media you use. That is actually really exciting to think, hey, so we are probably not only consumers, we are not only on the other side, on the receiver side, we're not really just the audience anymore, because we can share, we can comment, we can interact increasingly. So by the end of the day, we turn into something that we as communication scholars call the prosumer. So we're not only the consumer of media information and all the stuff that is out there, and we're not longer the target audience, but we produce communication ourselves. We share things, we comment on things. So that is actually really exciting to not only think about journalists. And yes, there is a question. What about yourself? Are you a content creator? So if you follow the comments in the chat, that is really yes. I think we are all kind of content creators, and therefore we do have a bit of a responsibility for the communication that we spread around, that we produce, that we pitch, that we then publish. And so there are a lot of interesting questions coming along, looking on the who. But I want to take you on this journey a bit further and ask a new question or another question, and think about, okay, if we face all those challenges, if we face like this massive digitalization, if we kind of are suddenly in the role of producing communication and turn into those prosumers, what is then like about the content? What are the medias that we use? So if we keep on going on this in this communication process, if you my presentation is gone now. Here we go again.
Did I just close it? I'm so sorry.
Okay. No worries at all. Honestly, no worries at all.
So here you go.
Here it comes again. Perfect. Yeah. Can you click again? And so the next question that I would like to kind of talk to you about is, where do we actually get most of the information from, and what are the channels that we use in this digitalized and mediatized world? What are the channels that we use to kind of receive information about the environment, about what is happening out there in terms of the climate crisis and sustainability?
So, and for that, we would like also then to try to ask you again, and please go to the Mentimeter, and we have another code. Please go there, and Wait. Now I will share you. Use that code. And you could try to okay. Wait. I'm kind of okay. Did you see now?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. So.
Oh, now it's really moving. That's great. See?
Yeah, now it's really moving.
That's awesome.
So, wow.
I think it's interesting that a lot of people get information from TV, and I would be actually really curious to learn more from you later when we have the chance to talk a bit about it, to learn more about what the others are that you get information from. Is it like your university? Is it friends, family? Is it people that you talk to, or like in your working environment? So that is really an interesting one, and I think it is not really surprising that we do get a lot of information from social media. I'm pretty impressed by like a lot of people who still read the newspaper. That's not really happening like a lot in Australia. Yeah. That's really interesting. But the media environment is pretty different in Australia and pretty, I don't know, different.
I mean, television is also surprising for me.
Yeah, it is. That's really great. Good to see.
Wow.
And even like, people are listening to podcasts more and more. That's great. And there are actually beautiful podcasts out there.
Also about climate change, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, thank you so much. For those of you who are already sending your answer, I will close it now and we will start again, but it's a really nice interaction, I think. Keep your cell phone near you, because Professor Weder still has some other question that you could answer, so that we could also see another interesting answer here on our session. So now I would like to share again your presentation.
And that's a great comment, by the way, in the chat, that yes, television content as well as newspaper content is shared on social media. So it's really hard to differentiate, but at the same time, it's great because we can access then the beautiful information there. So going back to our communication process of who is communicating what to whom, in which channel, with what effect, I think this question about like where do we get the information from is really interesting and important to ask. And I just want to give you a very, very quick kind of perspective and some background on what we see as media and what we talk about media, because I know like we all agreed on, there's TV, then there are newspaper, radio, this bit like the traditional media. But hey, there are more means for communication, all the social media channels. But then what is YouTube? Is it like similar to TV? Is it a social media channel? What is happening there? What's about a blog, like a professionally done blog? Is it comparable to a newspaper, or is it new? Is it different? So basically, these are all different types of media. And the variation is really broad, and they are all means for communication, or they are like the structure of communication. They are the means and the structure out there that we use to communicate, and where those communication processes and environmental communication and sustainability communication is facilitated. Of course, the media always, like when we talk about the media, it is important to talk about the media related to the content. So the media is always related to the what do we communicate about, but I will say a bit more about that because that's probably the most interesting bit, next to the communicators. So if you click again, I think to give you like a bit of an overview over media, it's nearly impossible to list all different types of media. However, we can differentiate between media like newspapers and blogs that are more text-based. And then we have all those audio-visual content that is provided in like TV, but even cinema, and movies, and then, of course, YouTube and all these channels. But by the same time, I like to just mention that audio-visual media, as you can see in this slide, they can be even more. Think about art. Think about activism. Think about all those protests and movements. Think about all those kind of billboard charts and like very, very different variations of like where climate change, a crisis, and related phenomena are communicated. And by the way, environmental art and eco art is like beautiful, and it's so really thought provoking. So if you have the time to Google a bit on eco art, environmental art, it's really great what's happening there. And it is a medium. So if we talk about media, it's not only like newspapers, text-based stuff. It's not only audio, visual stuff. It is all these eye-to-eye things that we experience. It's like lectures that you might hear at your university. It's all those meetings with friends, going to a friend's place. They are vegan. They are trying to talk you into this and giving you all those convincing arguments. So there's a lot of communication that is happening on this interpersonal level, which is really important and to really take into consideration. So if we go further and talk about those kind of different media forms, I think it's important to consider, especially if you, like we had in the chat, someone who said, oh, I would love to be a content manager. I would love to be more a prosumer. I would love to be really kind of create environmental communication, talk about things that are happening, for example, in my specific cultural context. So if you consider those different forms of media, I think it's good to have a quick thought about the strengths and the weaknesses. And of course, like if you kind of think about all these social media websites and blogs and microblogs and all those interactive channels, they are accessible for everyone pretty much. They are very immediate, very inexpensive, very quick. And you can share, you can comment, and it's much more kind of democratic. So this was the original idea of social media. But then by the same time, it's highly opinionated. And the biggest problem with social media is that there's no kind of ethical constraint that says, ooh, careful, that's fake news. So all the fake news problems, they are related to social media quite a bit. So that's definitely a weakness. But by the same time, in newspapers, magazines, and books, where you might have more kind of ethical frameworks in the background, more responsibility that is taken, more probably serious information that you get, and more objective information that you at least expect to get. By the same time, it's not really quick, it's not really immediate. It might be very kind of accurate, but it is very limited and it is slow in its delivery. TV, radio, podcasts, they are more kind of, have a better speed, but by the same time, they are highly commercialized. With all the advertisement, they are very strong. Like everything that comes along, audio, visual is stronger. It kind of appeals you much more. It affects you emotionally in a much better, much more than probably a textbook does. But by the same time, it is highly persuasive, so a bit dangerous because it can convince you and kind of create your opinion in a very different way. So I think it's good to kind of play around a bit with this media knowledge the next time you use media and the next time you actually use media to produce something. So especially social media are really attractive because you can be a content creator, as we talked about on the chat. It is more instant and you can share and post your news and other news and kind of recreate content and retell a story that is presented in a social media form. So, but what I think is really important to talk about with you guys, and leading more to kind of questions from your side, probably, is like that we have to think about like what is communicated about, like what are the prevalent issues on climate change, what is out there, what do you read, see, and hear in the media. So that is definitely a very important question, and I think we don't have a Mentimeter question here, do we? No.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I will try to show you. Yes, we have.
That's the one I'm really interested in your opinion, guys. So please participate. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I will try again. No. I am not so good with this.
Good.
Now I click again the wrong. It's like it's good when you are a technology savvy on this, but when you are not, then
it's happening.
No. It is the old one. Excuse me. Okay, I will try it again. Yeah. Do you see that?
Not yet. Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, that number. Great.
Okay.
So what are the most popular or prevalent issue on climate change that you read or see or hear in the media? Type your question there, and we are so curious about it. And someone, I think I also would like to do that.
I'm doing it. It's awesome. It's fun.
Wow. That. Okay.
Oh, that's me. Oh, okay. That's
that is the other. I'm not participating yet. I think I will. Just take your time and give us your answer. I also will do that. This time. Okay, it's moving.
That's awesome.
Yeah, renewable energy seems to be
pretty dominant.
Yeah. But I think, Fran, it's so different. I think while we are waiting here, what I heard, for example, because I consume to media, for example, here in Germany as well as in Indonesia. I come from Indonesia, and it's really a completely different issue. When we discuss about climate change, here it is more to renewable energy. So, and it's very popular issue here. Yeah, and in Indonesia, it's more quiet, so to say. So, and of course we also, but when you hear it, then you will hear about renewable energy use. So, and we rarely hear about climate skeptic, for example, climate skeptics in Indonesia.
But it's interesting that we apparently don't hear too many facts.
Yeah.
So it's just a few people who said, they actually hear those scientific facts. And that's really interesting, because that would be a very important question to study, to see if, like, due to the fact that in like the past 12 and more months, we, as I said before, scientists are more present, scientific facts are all around. We are all kind of scientific experts about COVID and like the virus and everything that's related to that. So I'm pretty curious if we are now trusting even more into science and scientists. That's really, really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, now we more or less see the highest is climate catastrophe here, but of course it's near to renewable energy and carbon emission and stuff. So I think we could continue to
absolutely.
your presentation, and we still have one question left later on. We will go back to Mentimeter again, but now let's continue our discussion, or so that later on we could also we have a discussion session, and I think we should use that to continue discuss the content of your presentation today.
Yeah. So, well, like a few things to say. So thanks, Amos, for being there. Thanks, everyone, for being here, because those topics that you've seen in the Mentimeter, these are like pretty prevalent ones. So those are the ones that we all kind of know of, and it's good to have this evaluation going. The interesting bit, like from a communication perspective, is that we differentiate between topics and issues. So a topic or an event is something that is kind of happening. So, well, there were bushfires in Australia. But then it's a big question if people make an issue out of it and who it might be. Because an issue is more than a debate, a trend, a recurring theme that moves somewhere from like a local spot or a private sphere into the wider public sphere. And it hops on the media agenda. So this is probably something that you hopefully keep in mind, that there are single events and things happening all over the world, but not all those topics that might be pretty important for the local area. Not everything makes it to an international agenda or like the international or the bigger or the wider public sphere. So I think it's important to kind of think about what are those most dominant issues out there, and what is it like that makes them an issue that kind of everyone talks about, or why is it that it's so important, and what are the big narratives and arguments out there. But you can click further, and then the kind of following question is really like, how are these topics presented? Because I think it's something that is important to think about. What is the way that those topics are interpreted? What is the perspective on a certain issue? And I will give you a pretty dumb example. Like if, like, not really kind of thinking about Donald Trump anymore, but I think it's a good example to think about him, or maybe the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. And just a very dumb example, like if she breaks her leg, that would definitely be debated on a public agenda. So this would make it on the public agenda. This is what we call the news values, because it's pretty newsworthy. And people think, oh, that's really interesting. Like he broke his leg playing golf or whatever. Or Angela Merkel broke her leg while, I don't know, going for a hike. If I break my leg, no one is interested. My family might be, or people who go like, oh, sorry, at my workplace. But no one else is interested. It will never be on the media agenda. But it's not only the event per se that Angela Merkel or Donald Trump breaks the leg. The more interesting thing is to get an understanding of how is it framed. So how is it presented? How is it talked about in the media? Because if Angela Merkel would break her leg right now in a period where she gets a bit more unstable, so she had a lot of support last year, but this year it's a bit different. So she doesn't have that much support anymore. And if she now breaks her leg, it might be framed as, ooh, she's weak, she's unstable, her politics, her leadership, everything gets a bit cracky and unstable. So I said, like, as I said, it's a bit of a weird example of the broken leg, but I think it gives you a good understanding of what a frame is, or the perspective on an issue, or the way we interpret an issue. You know, it's like one thing is that we define, it's to talk about, okay, this is happening. Angela Merkel broke her leg. But the other thing is like, how is it presented in the media? And what are the problems that are defined with or while talking about the broken leg? Okay. So Mira is an expert in framing, and she can always tell you more about that. I do a lot of framing stuff. I love that because I think it's really interesting, especially when we talk about climate change. And we all know that there are people out there that do not really believe in climate change. They always find a way out to say, oh, it's still snowing, huh? And it's really cold. And Germany is apparently having like one of the worst summers ever because it's so cold. Like, oh, it's not really warming up. And it's nothing that we can call global warming. And these are all those kind of, I think it's this governor in the United States called Mr. Inhofe who always brings this example, like as long as it snows, it's not the changing climate. So I think there's a lot of kind of different narratives out there. And this is why we talk about those frames, those ways of interpretation. But by the same time, we have to look at all those narratives, all those stories that are told on like, oh, the climate is changing, but like nothing to worry about because it's still cold, it's still snowing. But by the same time, we do have those stories out there that are pretty precisely talking about changes that affect us already, that affect different regions and different regions in this world. So I think from a communication perspective, we have those different perspectives. We have these analytical frameworks, and we try to understand like how is communicated in the media and who's communicating what again in the media. So I would like to invite you to have a bit of a look and have a look at two examples. It's just kind of an overview. Like there is a lot of information on climate change out there in the media, but if we go further, I wanted to pick one example from Australia because it is really ridiculous sometimes what's in the media here.
Okay, shall we continue with this?
It's okay. We can have a look at the example and then hop back. So it's pretty hard to read, but it's an example from Sky News, which is part of the News Corporation Australia, one of the big the two big corporate news business in the background. And here's this kind of the host says, so-called experts have been forced to admit climate change isn't the cause of these bushfires, but argues 2 decades of climate change activism is making them worse. So they're basically saying that the bushfires that were pretty visible at the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020, that kind of like it's not really related to climate change, but all those activists, all those Friday for Future kids out there, they make it worse, and they kind of make it worse internationally. So that is really a tough one and a good example. So if you go back, Mira, one slide, this is a bit of an overview of like different frames, different ways. For example, the bushfires have been described in the media. And one is that, hey, that's a conflict. Like there are these and these voices, and it's really nothing that is just happening, but we can be skeptical, and it's not real maybe. But then there are other stories, then there are other ways of interpretation of those disasters. And of course, there's a very strong narrative of like that climate change is happening. It's a crisis. We will all kind of suffer a lot. It's our kids will be really in trouble. And by the end of the day, we're all going to die. So there's this narrative. And then, of course, there's a different narrative driven by corporates, for example, that is about like, hey, now we have the chance. And as we've seen before, like renewable energies, there are a lot of pathways of innovation, and we will do better. There will be a technological solution for all those problems. And this is all part of a big transition process of modernization. So these are just a few examples that we detected in media with doing like a bit of content analysis and looking at like, okay, what are the narratives out there? What are the ways of interpretation of like what is happening, for example, like the bushfires? So if we kind of go forward to the second example, this is an example corporate communication. So this is from a website of one of the big Australia's electricity or energy companies, AGL, and they say, hey, as Australia's largest integrated electricity generation and retailing company, we recognize that we have a special role in supporting and enabling, and that we have to be this major force of change. And we know that our customers, they want this, they expect it, our stakeholders have these expectations, and we know what to do for a long-term kind of sustainable future out there, and we know what the future of energy will look like. So you can see a lot of pathos, you can see a lot of interesting rhetoric in there, and it's really interesting. And I don't want to go further into a greenwashing path. We can talk about this later if you want to, but I think it's really interesting. This is an example for a very different narrative. So it's more this kind of technology, innovation, now or never, we will make the way into a beautiful, innovative future. As corporates, we are the drivers of change. So that is really interesting.
So this is the last question, right? Fran, are you there? Fran? Hello, Fran. Are you still there? Fran? Yes, she is freezing. Okay. But everybody, now I would like to show you the other Menti Mentor that we have while we are waiting for Fran again to go back with us. So here's the question about how do you feel if you're reading about climate change, global warming, environmental and social problems. So I would like to show you our the last Menti Mentor that I have. So you could participate, and who knows, maybe Fran will come again. Maybe something happened on the way in Australia, but I'm sure we will manage that. So I hope you all have that. Okay, I will move because I already used this.
I was talking so badly about Donald Trump and Australia News Corporation, so they cut my internet, I'm pretty sure. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And I already moved to our fourth Menti Mentor. Is that okay for you?
Perfect. I want to do it. I want to do it.
Because you are freezing on the way when you are with what?
Sorry, I dropped.
Are you there?
I'm there.
Okay. And did you see my Menti Mentor again or not?
Yeah, I can see it. It's all these tiny little beautiful faces there. I just have to go there myself.
Okay. So now the question, no problem. So this is with what effect? Communication. When you are reading, watching, or hearing something about climate change and environmental problem, how do you feel about that? We would like to know. Is really the media influencing you or not really? Angry. Wow, a positive one. Frustration. Sad. We will still I mean it is great.
That's awesome. No, I really like that. That's great.
send us your questions so that we will know how do you feel when you hear about it. I definitely very often feeling frustration. I feel like, oh my God, because I mean, for those of you who are watching a keynote from Professor like on Sunday about climate change, that the fact and scientific fact, we already know that like years ago, so long, but until now it is not. I mean, here we are now, and we are still doing too less, right? So, for those of you who are still waiting, how do you feel when you are watching, reading, or hearing about climate change and environmental problems? But I'm very happy that at least from 27 people, there are 12 who are optimistic and have to do something. It's a lot. It's more than 50%. Okay.
No, that's awesome. I think.
Yeah. Pardon?
I don't know. Maybe. I think before we talk about like the IECA, I think it's really maybe good to take a few of those questions that are coming in both chats.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have questions, just put on Discord or on YouTube on the chat. We will try to look at those questions, and we would like to answer that. I mean, Fran will answer that.
Okay. I will try my best to do that. I think it's really great. I'm just kind of reading through Natasha's question in like one of the chats that I can access here. I think, like, I have to confess, your first question is like, what is my favorite YouTube channel? Or I don't know if it's directed to me, probably not. But talking about YouTube channels, I'm not quite sure. I do have like a few really beautiful podcasts on climate change issues, and if you're really interested in that, it's one of the podcasts that if you are interested in, it's a network. It's called Climactic, so Clima and Active, so Climactic, and it's a podcaster network in Australia, but they're going beyond, and it's a collection of beautiful podcasts of very different kind. And then there's another podcast that I'm listening to, which is really funny and great. It's called Sustainable, and it's done by two people from UK. And then another thing that you can always do is like comparable to the Fridays for Future movement. There's a big movement, especially in Central Europe. It's called the Scientists for Future. And the Scientists for Future just started their international web page, and it's really great because there are more things happening all around the world, and they do actually have great resources, especially on the German pages, which are partially in English. So they are really great and have good explanatory podcasts as well. It's just like a few examples.
And I think what's so perfect about podcasts is that you could even, while cooking, you could hear it.
Exactly. And like when you're traveling somewhere, like on public transport or even on your bike. So this is where I listen to my podcasts, on my bike, and it's really great because you can just listen to it, and it's really inspiring. Depending on what you're interested in, like if you're really frustrated, you probably should not listen to some of the podcasts in the Climactic network. That's a bit too frustrating then. Maybe you need to cheer up and listen to the Sustainable. That's actually really funny and really more optimistic. So
I think this is the last slide before IECA. So maybe you would like to wrap up our
absolutely, and I want to kind of relate that a bit to the questions that I can see from Natasha. in terms of like what is happening next, like what is really a way to do something to get more active. I think in environmental communication, it's always, and in all ways of strategic communication, it's always like a kind of three levels of effectiveness. One is awareness. That's kind of the minimal level. So it's kind of, okay, you raise awareness by kind of, hey, there's something happening. Hello, kind of really kind of sparking interest or sparking a conversation about an issue. And this could be like, the question is like, how can I reach out to the media? How can I push more to do more on climate change? As one is really kind of sparking these conversations. And this is something you can always do on social media. You can raise awareness and send things through. The next level is definitely to kind of create not only attention, not only awareness, but attention, and then getting into this kind of active mode and activate people, and so kind of influence behavior, create behavioral intentions in terms of changing behavior, mobilize people, kind of make people participate. And all those participatory approaches are always something that are really great to get people on board. So it's a bit of a chain reaction. So if you start doing something, you can initiate things. And then I think the long-term process and something that communication can do is to create more knowledge, to really create those connections between scientific facts and then people who translate it, who reduce the complexity and offer you the information. And I think, like, related to the last question in the chat, if Greta Thunberg, for example, if she does more good or more harm in terms of oversimplifying complex issues, this is exactly what I think is absolutely great, a great question. And the way she does it, I think it's perfect, because we are in an age of over-information. It's so much stuff out there. It's really hard to navigate through all the information, and it's really hard to navigate in terms of what is true, what is kind of really based on facts, and what is not true, what is just opinion, what is just opinion making. And so I think every new communicator that is out there and that is doing a great job in reducing the complexity of those issues is very, very valuable, because it's probably us who are already interested in these issues anyway, and we know a lot about it. So it's probably not us that we're talking about, but we're talking about kind of mass audiences and those people out there that are kind of like aware, but not really relating their own behavior to the things that are happening. So they would never, ever relate their own behavior to the bushfires. They would never, ever relate their own behavior to water scarcity happening in the Alps in Europe, happening in California, and happening in all the other countries. So I think this is then where we need those Greta Thunbergs, where we need those people who reduce a pretty complex issue and create this relationship to your very own behavior and everyday's behavior out there. So therefore, I think every kind of environmental communication is important. Every kind of climate change communication is important, because the more we get, the better. But by the same time, I think it's really important to support those voices and support those new communicators, and because that's definitely, she's doing good. She's doing great from my point of view.
Yeah, definitely. I could relate to that. And for you who still would like to ask questions, please ask some questions. Mm-hmm. You could put it in Discord or in YouTube here that we could see. I think Professor Weder already mentioned or answered several questions already. And I think if I could relate how important is the media is, as I it's really like changing my mind or the distance between me and environment when I am here in Germany, because the environmental issue is constantly appear in the media. You cannot go away from that issue here. And I think that is important. So here, I would like to maybe we could answer this question. Someone asking about how powerful is social media in influencing people's perspective about climate change.
That is a very good question. I think it is definitely influencing people's awareness, because as soon as you start following like one influencer on slow fashion or sustainable food choices or veganism, the more information you get due to the algorithms, and so the more your filter bubble will kind of enforce your perspective. So I think when we talk about people's perspective, it will definitely raise awareness, and social media are really great in influencing and putting something on people's agenda, because everyone's talking about, so I have to talk about it as well. But by the same time, I'm not quite sure if it really influences opinion. I'm pretty skeptic in terms of there's so much out there and so many different opinions that I'm not quite sure if people really are influenced by that from an opinion perspective. Due to the research that I've done so far, it's much more influential what your friends say. It's much more influential what your family thinks. So this is generally evaluated as much more influential in terms of like behavior and then your opinion and your thinking. So like family, friends first, and then media. But they are still pretty influential in terms of putting something on our agenda to think about.
Yeah, I think really as media literacy is really, really, really important, and how we could also select this. And maybe I would like to say hi first to Adam Christopher Maraya. He said that I hope to be able to see collaboration from this group by bringing our advocacies into social media to make our unique voices heard. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more voices, the better. That's absolutely true. And this is what you can observe like everywhere. But so again, we're talking about awareness. We're talking about people like, actually I should think about, and therefore, yes, the more voices, the better. But then we need those kind of key voices like Greta Thunberg, who really kind of put out a very precise narrative. So that is, and this is then definitely more effective or on a different level.
So okay, and then I would like I would like to go to the next one because I think it's related, because we are talking about I think it's not only, I mean, I come from Indonesia, and there is a question. Hello, Indonesian participant. Someone asks, I am Indonesian and climate change issue is rarely appear in the media here. So in Indonesia, I will agree with that. How can I reach out to the mass media and push them to put more climate change issue in the media? So we relate to the voice that we discussed previously. How could we make our voice more heard by the mass media and not only doing something on social media? I mean, social media is important. How could we bring our voice to the mass media?
That's a good question. I think if I could solve that, I would earn a lot of money. I'm not quite sure. The biggest challenge is that the mass media, the big newspapers and all those corporations behind that they are really, it's hard because they are in this very weird situation. They are very much under pressure from like an economic perspective. So they are fighting hard to be still relevant. And so I think the whole dynamic of how the media content gets created is very different compared to a few years ago. It's much more competitive. It's much more driven by what the people want to read. And I think this could be the pathway to go. So if more people ask for those stories, if more people, it is like media are pretty much driven by stakeholder expectations nowadays. So they want to meet their target audience's interests. So I think coming from that perspective, if the expectations are articulated by more people, then this would put some pressure on them. The way to do that, I'm not quite sure. One way is definitely to relate to, because they share their media, like their articles and their stuff on their own social media channels. And if this is used to kind of comment on that and say, hey, honestly, like, what about this? What about that? Pick it up, please. And those kind of previous letters to the editor and all these things, they are instruments to articulate what is needed and what is expected. So I think there is potential, but I think it needs a better understanding of the media landscape in the specific regions or countries.
Exactly. Yeah, that is really true. And I think nowadays the journalist also always checking what is trending on social media, and then it migrate from social media to the mass media as well. So maybe making noise and networking, and what our one participant previously mentioned, is not bad at all. Yeah. So now I would like to have one question from the discourse. I think this is really for you, Fran, because it's about Australia. Do you have the impression that the bushfires do have a lasting impact on climate change debates in Australia? Frankly speaking, I kind of surprised when you saw us the example previously, because it's like I think that I have no information. I mean, I have less information about the media landscape in Australia, but I didn't expect that there is such statement on television. It's like this climate skeptics having a huge voice there. So now go back to this question, and have the fires triggered change?
That's a very good question. So how much time do we have left?
No, not. I mean, you only have like 2 minutes, because at the end, I would like to take the last 2 minutes to close and to inform that the participant have the opportunity to do more on climate communication with us.
Absolutely, and I would love to share like a few words about IECA. Just a quick sentence about this. Well, Australia, like the media landscape here, is very, very different, especially compared to, for example, the European landscape or the landscape of the media in the United States. So there's like, and it is dominated by those two massive news corporations, and you know about Murdoch, and you know about how this is driven. And you probably know that the political situation is pretty strange, very nationalist and very kind of climate denying. Now my internet connection will be cut off soon. Wait for it. No. So the bad news is that the bushfires are still in people's minds, but it did not have this long-lasting, sustainable impact on politics, political decision making, and especially not on the awareness. And I think the dominating political voices did a great job in kind of fighting for that this is not related to climate change.
Okay.
And so that is like very, very interesting topic. There are a few colleagues of mine, they're publishing in Environmental Communication. It's a journal. It's really interesting stuff to read. And so the bad news is that climate change and sustainability and all these issues are definitely 10 years behind if you compare it to how present and prevalent it is. Mira said you can't get around these issues in Germany, and that's true. And you can get around these issues in Australia, definitely. No problem at all. No problem at all.
Okay.
And that's the bad news.
That's the bad news. So, okay, before we are closing...
So we have 7 minutes left. I have to say something about IECA. I want to.
Okay. 7 minutes is a lot, right?
That's great. I will need 3 for IECA.
Okay, so then this is one last question. I hope the organizer allowed us to do, because this is like really the final questions. There is someone who asked, how would you comment the influence of COVID-19 on climate change communication? This is really happening at this moment, because now, as if we are listening, hearing, and reading about COVID-19 everywhere, and somehow replace the climate change issue in some countries.
Yeah.
How?
I think there was a bit of a peak. There was a bit of a pretty nice peak when they published all those beautiful photos from those clean canals in Venice, and hey, people were able to see the Himalaya again, like from these more like in these more like polluted areas and stuff. So I think that was like, this did a bit with like, I think much more influential was the experience of being at home and just being more sustainable automatically, or kind of forced to be more sustainable in terms of, well, I did great in terms of CO2 emissions. I did no flights, no commuting, home office constantly, great. Like my footprint this year is check, done. So I think this is a pathway of like good feelings that could stimulate people to at least keep a few of these new routines going and saying, and I think there are changes that are happening in terms of individual behavior, and like international conferences will be different, blah, blah. So there's a lot of stuff happening. I'm not quite sure I think the biggest, like it's the other part of the question, and this is probably more important now, is climate change communication is, I'm pretty sure, affected in a way that I was talking about before, that science and scientists became a new role, that science communication became a bit more visible and more accepted. So people actually really, they read these stories about the virus. They are really interested in which of these vaccination has what kind of effects. So they are reading this medical stuff. So hopefully that can be transferred into climate science and sustainability science, in terms of that people are more interested in those facts, and that they listen more carefully to scientists and science. So that is my hope. I'm not quite sure if, like, yes, COVID-19 kind of pushed everything else from the media agenda. That's true. But now it's like we're pretty much over it anyway. So my hope is that the belief and the trust in science that was developed during COVID has an effect on climate change communication in the future, but I'm not quite sure, but I'm hoping.
Okay. So thank you so much for that. And I will give you your PowerPoint back.
Now, I just want to say a quick, a few words about the IECA. I mentioned it at the beginning, and and Mira and I are pretty active in this beautiful association. And so IECA is, as I said at the beginning, a platform and a network for people who are interested in climate change communication and environmental communication. And the good thing is that, as I said at the beginning, it's not like a professional association with only academics and all those professors. It's really about bringing students together with like lecturers and people working at universities on different levels, but by the same time practitioners and artists and NGO people and activists. So this organization is really interested in doing more and learning more and bringing people together. So therefore, we want to offer you, if you're interested in being part of this beautiful kind of, a bunch of people, firstly, have a look, check it out, theiECA.org. So it's important to have the IECA.org because IECA is something else as well. But theiECA.org, if you see the green label down there, then you're right. Browse around on the website, because there is a lot of really interesting content. And if you want to become a member, you have this unique chance, yay, to send Mira an email, say like, oh, I would love to join this community. That's actually really great, because then I can, there are those beautiful kind of packages of information that you get sent to on a monthly basis. You can be part of those conferences and like a really good network of people. So if you're interested in joining this community where Mira and I are board members and influencing it massively, and so it's a good pathway anyway. So send Mira kind of a CV and a short motivation of like maximum 200 words until the month of June.
Yeah, and we're really excited because we would like to have more, I mean, the young people, not that we all old at IAC. It's just, we are excited to hear from you. And maybe there will be new ideas and bring something to organization. And especially from all over the world, I know that ISWI participants are really diverse. So yeah, let's, if you have interest, just then contact us. And if you're still asking why, so this is the benefit if you are the member. For me itself, it's the networking. It's really, really, really great. Yeah, and other will come along, but it's not a magic. It's not like when you're a member, then everything will be completely there for you. No, you have to bring something to the organization, and hopefully it works, right? So I think this is the last slide, but we already finished with that. So
time is over.
Yeah, and our time is over.
It was lovely, guys. And I'm more than happy. I just want to, can I just make like a comment? I'm more than happy to, if you guys want to send me an email or get in touch with me. I'm pretty visible on social media, and you will find me by just searching for my name. And wherever you want to contact me, I'm more than happy to get in touch and answer more questions, whatever's happening in the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much, friend. Also for staying up late.
It's all good.
In Australia. And thank you so much for the organization, for this opportunity, for the great job of doing all of these things, to bring everything online, and hundreds of, maybe thousands of voluntary working hours. I really, really, really appreciate that. And maybe someday, and really, also to all the participants. And thank you so much for that. And hopefully we'll see each other, and hopefully this content will bring you something today. And yeah, we'll see. So stay active. And thank you so much for being part of ISWI 2021. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mira.
Bye.